I'll never forget the night Kofi went into the river. It wasn't just any river, it was the Nyawa, the lifeblood of our village and the thing we feared most. The river roared like a beast that night, swollen from storms upstream, its current faster and fiercer than we'd ever seen. And Kofi was determined to challenge it. The drought had left the village desperate. The crops were dry, the animals thirsty, and the well had given up its last drop days ago. The elders had warned everyone to stay away from the river, calling it Nyawa's wrath. But Kofi didn't listen. That night, as the firelight flickered on his face, he stood before the villagers and declared, "I will bring back water." The village square fell silent. You could hear the crackling of the fire and the distant roar of the river. "You can't," Elder Adu said, stepping forward. His voice trembled with the weight of his years. "The Nyawa is angry. It has taken stronger men than you. You saw what happened to Kwame last season." Kofi didn't flinch. "If we don't try, we'll lose everything. The crops will die. The animals will die. Do you want the children to go hungry?" Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some villagers nodded in agreement. Others shook their heads in fear. I, his younger brother, felt torn between pride and terror. Kofi always had a fire in him, but this felt like madness. "Kofi," I said quietly, pulling him aside. "The river doesn't care about bravery. It doesn't care about you." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Sometimes, the only way forward is through," he said. His eyes had that determined look I'd seen before, the same look when he'd climbed the tallest tree in the village or chased down a wild goat. But this wasn't a tree or a goat. This was the Nyawa. Despite the protests, Kofi prepared himself. He tied a sturdy rope around his waist and handed the other end to me. "Don't let go," he said firmly. "No matter what." We walked to the riverbank as a group. The villagers carried torches, their flames flickering against the dark sky. The roar of the river grew louder with every step, and by the time we reached the bank, it was deafening. The Nyawa churned like an angry serpent, its currents thrashing against the rocks. Kofi turned to the crowd. "Pray if you must, but don't lose faith." Then, without hesitation, he stepped into the water. At first, the water was shallow, reaching only his knees. The villagers held their breath as he moved forward, each step slow and deliberate. The current tugged at him, but he kept his footing. "He'll make it," someone whispered. But as Kofi moved deeper, the river's strength became clear. The water reached his waist, then his chest, and the current fought him at every step. I held the rope tightly, my palms sweaty and my heart racing. "Kofi, come back," a woman shouted. He didn't answer. He kept moving, his eyes locked on the deeper part of the river where the current calmed. That's where he needed to go to fill the gourd strapped to his back. Halfway across, the river struck. A sudden surge of water hit him, nearly knocking him off his feet. He stumbled but caught himself on a rock. The villagers gasped, their torches casting frantic shadows on the riverbank. "Kofi!" I screamed, pulling on the rope. He turned his head slightly, shouting over the roar, "Don't pull. I'm fine." But he wasn't. The river wasn't just water, it was a force, alive and unrelenting. He slipped again, his feet losing their grip on the slick rocks beneath him. For a moment, he disappeared under the surface. My heart stopped. Then, he emerged, coughing and gasping for air. He clung to a jagged rock, his knuckles white with effort. The villagers cried out, some covering their faces, unable to watch. Kofi clung to that rock for what felt like an eternity. The current roared around him, pulling at his legs, but he refused to let go. Slowly, he shifted his weight, inching his way toward calmer water. Back on the bank, Elder Adu placed a hand on my shoulder. "Keep holding the rope," he said. "He needs to feel your strength." "I'm not strong enough," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, you are," Adu said firmly. "And so is he. Watch." With every ounce of strength, Kofi pushed forward. Step by step, he moved through the current. His face was etched with pain, but his eyes burned with determination. When he reached the calmer waters, the villagers erupted into cheers. Kofi filled the gourd quickly, securing it to his back. But the journey back was no easier. The current seemed angrier, as if the river itself was trying to stop him. "Hold the rope," I shouted to the others, and together, we pulled as he fought his way back. When he finally reached the shore, the villagers rushed to him, pulling him onto the muddy bank. He collapsed, coughing and trembling, but alive. That night, as Kofi sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets, the village gathered around him. "Why did you do it?" someone asked. Kofi looked up, his voice hoarse but steady. "Because giving up wasn't an option. The river wasn't my enemy. It was my test. It wanted to see if I had the strength to keep going." Elder Adu nodded, a proud smile on his face. The Nyawa doesn't give its water freely. It gives it to those who persevere. The next morning, we used the water Kofi brought back to save the crops. Days later, the rains returned, and the village celebrated. But for me, the real victory was watching Kofi prove that courage and perseverance could overcome even the fiercest challenges. Even now, when I hear the roar of the Nyawa, I think of that night. And I remember Kofi's lesson, to never give up, no matter how strong the current.
Thank you for watching. We appreciate your presence. Please help us to grow our small channel by subscribing. Please like the video and tell your friends and family about our channel. We promise to bring you more interesting and captivating stories that will add value to your life and that of your friends and family. Until the next time, please take care of yourselves. Bye for now.